Hey yo, really interesting post-colonial times and land redistribution conversations happening in Zimbabwe and South Africa. Not as simple, they could be because of land. People are saying, why pay people money for land that they took from your ancestors? And I think in the Zimbabwean case, it's so complicated because the land deals, as far as I understand, were for 100 years. And when the 100 years came up, it was time to return the lands to the indigenous people. But Mugabe, who was the president at the time, obviously took over the land without kind of a clear plan in place. And so farmers felt they deserved to be, compensated for the lands that they lost. And I think also on the side of the indigenous people, it's like, okay, land that has been taken or lands that were taken 100 years ago, who gets what land? Who gets, which land? What size of land? And are those taking over the lands even trained to be able to produce to the extent that they could to sustain agriculture in the communities? And then there is also the fact that a lot of European countries and mostly the West won't do business with Zimbabwe because of the land grab or the land redistribution efforts or the land takeover. And so there's a lot there to be processed. And it doesn't appear like there's a straightforward answer or an easy answer to some of these questions. But this kind of highlights the kind of challenges that our generation has to process and figure out how to solve, especially as some of these 100-year deals are expiring, especially around land. In the case of South Africa, I hear that 7% of the population own about 80% of the land. Something about that is unsustainable. And obviously, the indigenous community doesn't feel that is right or fair. And so the question is, how do you redistribute land in a way that is fair when other people have owned it for 100 years, but through colonization, right? So some of these issues do not have clear-cut answers, but I guess the way to reconcile all this is to also figure out what the objectives of the community are moving forward, which is how do we figure out a way to be fair and just to everyone while ensuring that the systems in place are tweaked and improved and not completely destroyed at a risk of actually undoing all the progress that's been made in some of the industries that exist, right? So that new farmers and old farmers can figure out a way to work together. People can be compensated fairly for their lands, and those whose families these lands were bought from can also receive their lands. It's all not straightforward, but that's kind of what's cooking. Anyway, these are just my
チャン
thoughts.
ネル登録、高評価よろしくね。